cheek today.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get blood flow.
What? Yeah.
Good evening. We're going to call the November 5th East Ascension Board of Commissions meeting to order. Mrs. Fontenot is going to lead us in prayer, followed by the pledge.
Father, we do thank you tonight. This is the month of Thanksgiving, so we come tonight, Father, with grateful hearts. We come and we thank you for the health of 2 councilmen that were out this past week that are doing fine. We thank you for this great parish. I thank you, Father, for the service that I've been able to do these past 4 years. And I ask your blessings on the future council, the future drainage board members that take office in January. And Father, we just thank you for a people in this parish, Father God, who deserve, Father God, good decisions. And we thank you tonight that you will enable us to make those proper decisions. We thank you for our servicemen who are abroad, who are giving their lives and sacrificing themselves for our good and the good of others. Tonight we thank you that you do guard our gates and our borders with your glory, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's have the let it be known that Mr. Hillensbeck and Mr. Thompson are absent. Mr. Thompson's out with surgery. We'll move on to number 3, public comment section. Anyone want to speak on an agenda item, please sign in. Y'all have 3 minutes to speak. We'll move on to any 2/3. Anyone having any 2/3? No 2/3. We'll move on to number 4, acceptance of minutes of October 1st, 2007.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Martin McConnell, second by Mr. Savoy. Any discussion? Any objection? So move. We'll move on to number 5, which is a review of the East Ascension Drainage District, number 1, 2007 amended budget and 2008 proposed budget. We need a motion to accept. Mr. Bill Rules is going to fill us in.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Second.
Second by Mr. Savoy. Discussion?
Can we hear the dog and pony show?
Yes.
Thanks.
Go ahead,
Like
Mr. Rules.
always, this time of year, present the budget to the Drainage Commission. What we're looking for is a motion to accept the amended 2007 budget and also the proposed 2008 budget. If you go to the next page, and we'll go through it pretty fast. Of course, the revenue, this is projected revenue. This is coming out of your budget books that finance is handing out. If you noticed in the budget for 2007 has an increase from what was predicted. What we did, and also for 2008, is more than what we put into our financial model. We have corrected our financial model, and it even gave us a better performance over the next 10 years by putting that figure in. That's a little bit more than what we projected in our financial model. The next page, again, is the revenue. It's just a detail of the revenue, the ad valorem taxes, sales tax. And if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead to number 5, which is the expenditures. In the expenditures, we're looking at amending the 2007 budget from $5 million for personnel from $5,231,000 and change to $5,243,000, just a little bit of addition. Personnel going into 2008, projecting that the expenditure was $5,854,000, and you can see there that most of that has to do with salary and increase in benefits for our personnel. We do have in our budget, and you can go back in that same packet, you have explanations of our budget items. And in it, you have, as per Pacific codes, we do have in it for hiring 2, 4, 6, 7 more operators and a couple more laborers. That's figured into this figure also, additional personnel. It also shows where we asking to hire or at least budget for an engineer at $70,000, another drainage engineer. Again, it's in the budget. We don't know if we are able to find somebody that meet our needs, but if we do, we want the money there to be able to hire the person. For general operation expenses, it comes down to $15 million. For the total of everything comes to $15,171,000 for 2008. This is an increase over 2007 amended of about $3 million. Amended budget's $12,296,000. Most of that has to do with increased personnel and also in acquisitions. In the budget details for acquisitions, I'd like for you to look at, these are the things that we're looking at buying and the cost of each. And that's where we get the figure of $935,000 from. Again, this is stuff that we're anticipating on buying. Some of it is replacements, about half, and half of it is new equipment. So again, this is for your reviews, just so this is what's going to be listed in the budget books and what we'll be looking at purchasing. Also, in the details portion of your code, we're looking at amending the 2007 acquisitions budget. And again, it's already in this figure for the amended budget to add additional $160,000 for equipment. And then one of the things is the shredder, and that's completely outfitted, fitting it with a shredder head and a power pack. And it's also for GIS equipment, which is on the agenda tonight. And our vehicle tracking equipment, which we're looking at doing, and that's where we can monitor all our vehicles at Public Works and at Drainage Works for wherever they're at in the parish. Again, this is the 05 budget, our general budget. Fund 35 is our construction budget. I ask for you to go to that page. And the revenues coming in mostly has to do with the fund balance and the bond revenue coming in for this coming year. We have projected over the next 4 years the bond coming in different draws. So this will be the first draw of our bond for next year. This is also comes from our financial plan that we put together for 10 years. The year 2008, if you will go to that financial plan, you'll see that it is predicting a figure of about $60 million for next year. I mean, of about $19,758,000. That's what we're looking at projecting on our project, mega project for next year. Again, that comes from our master plan. Again, I can answer any questions. I won't go through every figure, but it basically has to do with the bond proceeds, bond indebtedness, and also fund balance.
Bill, I got Mr. McConnell.
Yes.
Has a question for you.
Just something for a little clarification, Bill. On their general operating expenses,
Yes.
what was that, page 2 or whatever, bridge materials went from $190,000 to nothing.
That is, and that would cause you something to notice. But if you go down to
Well, I also see concrete, metal, and plastic culverts went from $400,000 to $50,000, but then further down, I see concrete and aluminum box culverts
Exactly.
went from nothing to $300,000.
And what we did, we added some new categories. We did not have a category for concrete and aluminum box covers. That was grouped into concrete, metal, and covers. We wanted to differentiate between the plastic and metal covers and the aluminum box cover, because we're putting more of those in than bridges.
And then you moved that 190,000 from bridge material down to off-road
Off-road
bridges, so
bridges.
it washed itself out.
That's right. And
Okay.
we added that category of off-road bridges because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
And it's a
Yeah.
better way of accounting to what is done in drainage.
Okay, a little bit further up the line there. We had budgeted in 2007 for engineering fees and surveying expenses. We budgeted $207,000. We actually paid $514,000, and then we're projecting for 2008 $150,000. I mean, I know we got a lot in the hopper and a lot in the works. Is that coming out of bond
That's
proceeds?
coming out of our Fund 35 construction budget.
It's coming from the construct. So that those fees are being
Right.
transferred, and so they're allocated directly to each construction.
To our capital
So-
projects, which is now our Fund 35, is our capital project budget. Most of those figures is taken away from our operations budget and put into capital outlay.
Okay, so engineering fees, surveying costs, all of that is going to be allocated to the actual construction project, so that will be considered part of the cost. Okay, I'm fine with that. That's good, and I'm cool with the engineer too. That's if you can get one.
If we can get one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bill?
And the...
Hang on, Ms. Fox.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just curious. The East Ascension Drainage Reserve, 208, we will have $53 left.
And that's because we canceled reserve and got insurance. If you remember back, the board elected to get insurance on the reserve instead of having a reserve fund. And for the bond, or the new bond issue, we're doing the same thing.
So this fund's not necessary anymore,
No,
that's what
we're
you're
not gonna
saying.
keep any money in reserve. We're going to have insurance that covers that reserve for us.
I don't know. Thank you.
And again, it's, the only other thing is Fund 34 and 74. 34 is your reserve fund itself, and that's what we just went through. And again, this is just indicating where the money went and where it's starting to zero out in 2008 because we're not going to have a reserve fund. The other thing is Fund 74. This is something that Ms. Carla Cormier, our consultant, is putting together for finance because this is repetitive loss, and she's putting together the budget for it separately. She knows what the money's coming in and how it's going to be accounted for and what she has scheduled to do next year. And we're still waiting on her to get with finance, but that should be completed for when it goes to the full council for acceptance by the full council. And that's about it for our budget summary. Again, I can answer any questions tonight. You still have time. We would like the motion tonight, acceptance, so it can go to the full council. You still have time between now and then. If you see problems with it, that you can call. We can make adjustments or explain it before it goes to the full council.
Mr. Shakespeare.
Bill, you still have on here 39,000. That's adequate for weed control, on weed control?
Yes, and when we say weed control, that's not outsourcing any weed control. We got separate items for that, contract labor. This is for just our chemicals that
Right.
we use on a day-to-day basis,
Okay.
and that's all that is.
What about outsourcing for when we're shredding and things like that? Where do you stand there?
Yes, sir, and that's in the outsourcing for a lot of that is in our capital outlay budget of Fund
Okay.
35.
So you have it on 30?
We
okay.
put that in our capital outlay type budget.
Okay.
Major outsourcing of contract labor.
Okay. And we're okay with that?
Yes,
now?
sir.
We're
That's-
covered with that?
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Now, we may, I'll be honest with you, we may want to adjust that as we see what's happening with our own personnel. What we're hoping to do actually is to put more personnel doing it ourselves. We're having a hard time finding enough personnel to just do our routine maintenance now, so it looks like we will outsource. But if that turns around and we're able to do a lot of it ourselves, well, we
Okay.
may have to come back and readjust that budget. But what we'll be doing is pulling it from one fund, pulling it into this fund to help pay for it. But we'll notify you and ask permission before we do that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Any more discussion? We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Jerry Savoy, to move forward with the two budgets? Do you have any objections? So moved. Let's move to the full council, Ms. Heather. We'll move on to number 6, the Henderson Bayou Capital Improvement Project, Memorandum of Understanding, Review of Project, Authorization to Proceed with Task Order number 2. Mr. Bill Rue?
Yes, sir, and I have Mr. Ammer with CDM here to explain it, go through a presentation. But I'd like to ask you to notice the cover sheet that we're presenting before every agenda item now. And this is to aid your understanding, number one, in what the agenda item is about. It also, what we're doing for the first time, we're offering a proposed motion. And what we're asking to do, you refer to this motion when we make final vote. So when we go into the minutes, that we have a real accurate, detailed motion that we know exactly what's being voted on, and also finance. Everything is included in here that finance need to accurately track it and pay the invoices. So in this particular motion, it would be to approve the memorandum of understanding as presented or amended if so decided, and approve general task order number 2 for preliminary design and associated professional services as presented. Subtasks may be necessary, but the cumulative compensation of all subtasks of general task order number 2 shall not exceed $1,581,000. And also we need authorization for the limits of their annual task order contract be increased by this same amount. So everything is in here that we need for finance to really track it and pay the invoices. And we're going to do this on all agenda items from here on. And with that, I might ask Mr. Ammer to come up for his presentation and explanation of this agenda item.
There's a presentation. You probably should also have handouts on the presentation. I don't know if we can get the presentation up on the screen, maybe. There you go. Anyways, in the September Drainage Board meeting, the board assigned us the task of preparing a conceptual design memorandum, investigating what the alternatives before the board for improving the drainage system in Henderson Bayou might be. And we're coming to you this evening to summarize the findings of the memorandum. We've already discussed this with Mr. Rue and URS, and based on finalization and their review, presenting to you the final, I guess, findings of that memorandum and laying out the next steps. Just stepping back for a second, in April 2007, we completed the watershed study for Henderson Bayou Basin. And the purpose of that study was to identify what the deficiencies of the system are and what the goals should be. Just to quickly summarize, we determined that protection from the 10-year Amite River flood event would require levee elevation at elevation 13.5. That the 10-year rain event requires a pumping capacity of 1,500 CFS, and a 5-year event requires a pumping capacity of 1,000 cubic feet per second. And based on some basic investigation of the structures in the basin, that the system must maintain a maximum elevation of 8.0 to protect the structures. Basically, the required flood protection system needs to perform two functions. One is to protect from backwater, specifically the Amite River backwater from entering into Henderson Bayou. And secondly, rainfall removal. If the basin is protected with a flood system and a floodgate and a levee, any rainfall that happens during a high water event would have to be removed. And so these are the two parts of the system that we investigated. This next diagram may be a little difficult for y'all to really see the details, but it shows the basin and Henderson Bayou itself, and the proposed location of the flood control system. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see a little more detail of where that is. That location was selected for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's near the confluence of Amite River and Henderson Bayou, and adjacent to a natural ridge. And that natural ridge would facilitate levee construction, basically lower the cost of creating a levee, taking advantage of the ridge. Secondly, it's at a straight run in the bayou. That would allow an unimpeded flow into the drainage structure and, kind of improve pump performance. We also have accessibility to utilities and roadways, et cetera, on the east bank of Henderson Bayou. And similarly, we would put the gate structure on the west side, west bank of the bayou, to protect the gate structure from traffic. This is kind of a conceptual configuration of the pump station itself, and it's probably a little detailed to really examine the way it's showed right now, but basically up is north, and on the right side of the system would be the pumps and mechanical components, etc. And on the far left side, on the west side of the bayou, would be the floodgate where navigation would be able to get around the system itself, the structure and the gates. The pump station configuration that we determined would make most sense for this application is summarized here. First of all, it seems that based on the needed performance range, vertical type pumps would be most appropriate for the type of flows that we're looking at. And we've talked to Bill, and there may be some preferential operational type issues that we'd like to work out in specifics. But I think at this stage, at the conceptual level, a vertical pump system seems to be most appropriate. We would also propose a floor pump system, so that you would have two 500 cubic feet per second capacity pumps and two 250 cubic feet per second capacity pumps, so that you would achieve the 5-year performance goal of 1,000 CFS, even if any one pump were out at any given time. We would also propose that the board include an additional bay, just a blank empty bay, so that a future 500 CFS pump could be installed, and by doing so you would double basically the frequency of protection to a 10-year event, a 10-year rainfall event. The floodgates are there for a specific purpose. That the Henderson Bayou is a navigable waterway, and to maintain traffic during periods of once the pump station is actually constructed is important. Of course, we are anticipating smaller recreational traffic, so that would hopefully make a far less involved gate than you would see at other facilities. We would propose a 30-foot opening at this point to allow that anticipated traffic. Obviously, if with working with the board and with residents and folks who use the bayou, if we can come up with something smaller, that would obviously be advantageous. But the final confirmation of the gate design criteria has to be with the involvement of the U.S. Coast Guard, because it is a navigable waterway. Finally, the levee system. It is intended to basically take advantage of the natural contour in the Henderson Bayou Basin to meet the 10-year backwater elevation of the Amite River of 13.5. We would tie into the highest natural contour in the vicinity, which happens to be one of the highest ridges in the Henderson Basin. Based on the topography of the basin, it's clear that we can't really achieve anything better than that 13.5 elevation of protection without encircling the entire basin with a levee. The topography is fairly flat, and it's fairly lower the further downstream you go. Upstream you go in Henderson Bayou. Beyond just the technical considerations of engineering, equipment selection, etc., site development, there are quite a few planning considerations that make this a little bit more complicated. Obviously, first and foremost is wetland permitting and mitigation. Particularly the west side of the bayou is clearly wetlands, and that would have to be mitigated, and that cost would have to be taken into consideration. And it is at our planning level cost estimate taken into consideration kind of conservatively. We also have to adhere to Army Corps of Engineers requirements. Though they're not funding the project, flood control projects of this nature and this type of this scale are typically handled by the Corps. Getting their buy-in and involvement early, which has already been done actually, is going to help the process move forward more smoothly. Land acquisition is also another thing that the board should keep in mind, and obviously the preliminary engineering step is going to prepare the board to move forward as necessary to acquire land. And ancillary power and utilities, though these pumps are certainly going to be run off of the electrical grid on their own power, there will be a need for ancillary power and utilities, water, sewer, et cetera, to accommodate maintenance and operation, staff, et cetera. Finally, the schedule, that's probably the more critical component of the project. The construction completion goal is December 2010, and that anticipates an aggressive construction duration of 730 days. To meet that schedule is going to require a good bit of effort on everybody's part, not just the engineer, but the board and other parties, regulatory agencies, et cetera. To meet that schedule, we've suggested to build some pretty aggressive dates, beginning design as soon as possible, and then submitting a preliminary design document in June of next year, and then turning in final design in December of next year as well. That gives the board, pretty close to almost 2 years, exactly 2 years, to get construction done, to get the job advertised, bid, and built. Any questions regarding any part of the project? We'd be happy to go over with you specifically.
Mr. Barger.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You said the power source was going to be on its own grid, electricity. Do you have a secondary diesel power backup or anything?
No, it would. That's exactly what I meant to suggest, that the pumps would be powered on their own by their own diesel power, not off of the electrical grid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would have its own.
You said it was going to be on its own grid.
Yeah, I misspoke. No, it's going to be powered on its own.
About to say that ain't going to work in a hurricane.
No.
More questions?
Mr. Chairman, if the
Mr.
next
Rue?
part of is to review the fee proposal in phases, and that it should be in your handout spreadsheet. And the total price, like I mentioned in the motion, proposed motion is not to exceed a general task order, not to exceed $1,581,000, and that's for preliminary design fee and associated outsourcing of other consultants to gain this preliminary engineering. Now, what it's going to do, one of the key aspects of this actually is a laboratory intake canal modeling, which they're going to go to a national firm to do. And that's very important. It's a good bit of money, but actually that's what we're going to use, CDM and URS and the rest of the design team are going to use to really look at the most efficient way of going forward with this project. The proposal that they came up so far is what they, as a design issue, is the best and the biggest. After we do this modeling, and Amber can jump in any time, we may see some benefit from this in that we may be able to downsize it some, or maybe be able to go with a different type of gates or a different type of structure. So this is very important that we get to this immediately, that part of the design, and come back with the final recommendations, because the design may change, and it's likely will change a good bit from now to they get the final preliminary design put together. The total amount of the whole project, I'll let you know right now, and this is going for everything the best, is probably in the neighborhood of $30 million to $33 million. However, that is just the beginning of it. Now we get all the information in, and we start working on bringing that cost down to the proposed amount between 18 and 20 million. And we're still looking at hitting that figure. That's our available funds for this project, and it's the function of the engineer, design engineer, and URS to bring this money down to that. So things going to change between now and you get your final design in next year. But we'll be coming back, give you progress reports throughout the year, every phase completion, and let you know what's going on.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
I would like to entertain that motion that we accept the the proposed motion, and I really appreciate all the hard work that the commissioners and Mr. Rue and CDM have really put into this project. We're really fixing to start putting some concrete and steel in the ground, and I think this is history, so we need to really appreciate that.
Got a motion on the floor by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Martin McConnell. Any more discussion? Mr. Valentine.
Hey, I know a lot of the discussions about the floodgate and everything is the positioning of it. You have any other documentation on? I mean, I'm sure it may be in this situation. Can you address why we chose this particular area? I mean, it looks. Can you kind of tell me exactly where it's on this map? It's kind of difficult. Bill, can you explain
if you want
it
me,
to
I'll
me?
dive in because I'm more familiar with this area.
Let me might be able to put the map up on the screen to help you.
This is actually at the connection, the convergence of Henderson Bayou into Lake Velor.
Okay.
And it's a site that is not it's a fairly narrow channel location between the two high banks. So now we can connect the two high banks. It's also a pretty good area in front of it, low area what we can utilize for a reservoir to collect the for the at least the headwaters coming down. It's a non-populated area, and we have talked to the landowners already, and they're favorable in selling the property to us. So everything is coming together at being the most feasible and, from an engineering standpoint, best place to put it. And the ideal thing with it too, if you go any further up with it, then you're going to have to make a much bigger levee because you have Bayou Miette coming off of it, the lateral. Right. And if you go further up, you're going to have to go past that inlet of Bayou Miette to Henderson Bayou. So now you actually have to put another floodgate and levee around. So again, this is probably the only place you can have it from engineering and feasibility standpoint.
Can I add a few
Sure.
points that what Bill is saying is absolutely right. There are a few other little subtle things that we discovered what made this site a little more convenient. And if Mr. Valentine, if you look at the map up in the upper right corner, the little zoomed in part of it, you'll see there's a bit of a jog right there, kind of zigs ahead of where we've proposed the levee and floodgate structure. Having a long straight run of channel coming into your pump station is ideal. There's very few spots on the Henderson Bayou that allow you to do that. It just so happens that at the one spot where there is a ridge where you can build a levee also happens to be a fairly straight run of the bayou. So it's very convenient in that sense also. So there were, again, I mean, just as Bill said, there is almost no other place to put it from a practical sense, but it just so happens that it's also pretty convenient just from a configurational
Right.
standpoint.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Valentine, what we propose to do with this project, which is not included and has been talked about a lot, but it's necessary that we include in this project at a later date, and it's something that we can do as part of our general funds or something like this, or as another project with money that we find as a special project. We need to dredge Lake Velor and open up the channel from Lake Velor to Amite River to get this water out. That would do two things. In other words, expedite the flow from the pumping station that's in use. The other thing is help the benefit the people living along Lake Velor for us getting traffic in and out. They can utilize their property a lot better. It'd be a lot more functional for us fishing and boat traffic, but at the same time will give us the benefit of getting that water out when we have our pumps on.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe Bill. We had a few people, asked about the impact that pumping the water to the Amite River would rise it some, but I know the Commit project is taking place that's supposed to drop the Amite River a certain amount, so I don't see a big impact. Yeah, I've looked at that as far as the hydraulics.
We've talked, I mean, certainly informally with the Corps about this project. When you're talking about the scale of how much water flows through the Amite River, to how much water will be pumping out, I mean, it's
In fact, it's slim.
it's a quite small proportion. I mean, the amount of water being pumped out is obviously significant for the for Henderson Bayou Basin, but in terms of Amite River, it's a fairly small number. Now, that's not to say that whatever work is done here should not be integrated with the Corps of Engineers Amite River and Tributary Project. It should be. And the model that the parish has already completed should be incorporated with the Corps' ongoing work. That's definitely the case, and it should be kind of formally addressed during design.
Thank you. Any more questions? Mr. Savoy?
Yeah, Armour, how big are these pumps we're talking about pumping?
We're talking about, in this conceptual stage, we proposed to achieve the 1,000 CFS to meet the 5-year rain event. We're proposing 2 500 CFS pumps and 2 250 CFS pumps.
2 500 and 2 250?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me ask this. What's the biggest portable pump they make on the market?
I couldn't tell you with any absolute certainty what the biggest portable pump might be, but a 250 CFS pump is pretty big. It's portable to the extent that you can transport it in and out of a facility reliably. I would say it's probably not very likely, but I would like. I mean, if you would like, we can investigate that further. But I would guess, just given some firsthand experience, something of that size is pretty big. It's a pretty big pump. 250 CFS is a pretty big pump.
And where I'm going at with this is to spend this kind of money on a fixed pump where we may use it fairly infrequent. If they do make big pumps, mobile pumps, to where if we have a rainstorm coming or a storm coming, we have these on site where a vendor is holding them to so to speak. I mean, I know we do that in industry to a large degree. It may be a great cost savings. I don't know that, but I do know that industry do hold particular pieces of equipment for emergency purposes, and they rent them at a lot less cost than owning them. So that's just the idea.
Well, I mean, I think, Mr. Savoy, I think what we could do is, rather than just ignore that idea, I think we could probably very quickly investigate if that's a viable option or not, if there's something out there that's reliable and available in that capacity. I just don't. I believe it's probably not. For this range, it may be impractical to move something around that big.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? No objection?
Object.
Mr. Barger objects. Motion passes. We'll move on to number 7 now. SJB task order right-of-way, Laurel Ridge Levee Capital Improvement Project. Mr. Bill Rue.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, member of the Commission. The SJB Group was previously tasked with assisting CDM engineers on Laurel Ridge Levee upgrade and extension project. This task order is proposed for SJB Group to obtain signed right-of entries from all property owners within the limits of the project and for the purpose of survey, appraisal, and geotechnical investigations. Also included are appraisal services needed for eventual acquisitions. Motion proposed to authorize the task order SJB Group LLC for the Laurel Ridge Levee upgrade and extension project Phase 1 right-of-entry and Phase 1 appraisals not to exceed $44,100. Increase their annual task order contract maximum from $100,000 to $300,000 to cover this and other previous task orders authorized by the Commission this year, which we did not get an extension of their contract, and Finance is asking us to make amends for that. These are things that you have already authorized part of this levee project, but again, we need official authorization to upgrade their task order contract.
Mr. McConnell.
I'll offer that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Mr. Mark McConnell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kent Shakespeare. Any discussion? Any objections? So moved. Move on to number 8, policy memo. Number 7, project notification to property owners. Mr. Bill Rue.
Yes, sir. This policy memo explains the policy of EADW will have concerning the notification of property owners prior to mobilizing to begin regular drainage projects at or near affected properties. This is something that we had a couple council members ask us to. We may have had some problem notifying the certain property owners. We always notify the ones adjacent to the property, but some people that wasn't actually adjacent but did maybe impact them somewhat, we did fail in the recent past to notify them. Sometimes we failed to notify the subdivision associations of work within a subdivision. So this policy is meant to correct that, and we are asking to authorize and accept policy memo number 7, project notification of property owners as presented.
So moved, Mr.
As
Chairman.
the official policy of the EA Drainage District.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Barger, second by Mr. Kent Shakespeare. Any discussion? Any objections? So moved. We'll move on to number 10, review and approval of the East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District's major drainage system channel identification and resolution to adopt into the district's drainage system as per RS 38-113.
Wait,
Mr.
this
Bill
is,
Rue.
you missed number 9, Mr. Chairman.
9? Sorry about that. I got it checked off. Acceptance of bids. We could have went with it, Mark.
That's it.
Acceptance of bid, COR stations, GPS hardware and software. Mr. Bill Rue.
Okay, the purchase of the core station, which is a continuous operating repeating station, was authorized through the cost sharing, the EA Drainage, and the Parish of Ascension. Bids were accepted by the Purchasing Department on October 23, 2007. Lowest qualified bid was from Leica Geosystems Incorporated for $93,354.80. This is, we asked for the lowest qualified bid for GRX 1200 Pro receiver with associated items as listed in the bid request for $93,354.80 from Leica Geosystems Incorporated. We ask that as a motion.
I don't remember that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Discussion, Mr. Savoy.
Yeah. Bill, is this the one where we're
Cost
cost sharing with DPW
I
and
think-
planning and zoning?
Yes, sir, and they brought that to y'all, I think, at the last council meeting.
Council meeting, and our share is like $33.
One-third of this,
33,000, something like
and
that.
we are
Okay.
authorizing this, proceeding with this agreement.
Mr. Shakespeare.
Bill, how much maintenance and all on this?
Very little,
Very little.
very little.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any opposition? So moved. Now we'll move on to number 10.
Yes, sir. And
Mr. Bill.
if you go to the resolution itself, I believe Heather passed it out, agenda item number 10. And it looks kind of confusing, but this is a formal resolution that's needed to be recorded in the courthouse. If you notice, attached to this is an explanation of all the lateral designation codes with the common name and also the limits of that bayou, and also as an associated map. All of this as per the resolution, and if I don't have to read it, I won't. But it basically says for us to comply with RS 38113, the formal designation of the bayous accepting into our drainage system must be approved by the commission and recorded in the courthouse. We weren't able to record it until now because we did not actually complete our designation of all the drainage systems. Now, you approved the map months ago, but again, we weren't able to do anything until we had the formal designation. This is a permanent document that is recorded and kept, and as we add channels to it, they will be designated with a proper code and placed into the spreadsheet and recorded in courthouse. So again, we ask for the motion to accept this resolution and authorize us
So moved.
these channels into our system.
Got a motion by Mr. Jared Byerga, second by Mr. Martin McConnell. Any discussion? Any objections? So moved. Move on to number 11, the task order. Number 3, CSSI mulching drainage areas, not to exceed $40,000. Mr. Bill Rue.
Yes, sir. The Drainage Commission previously authorized a task order to CSSI, which is also known as Kim Spray, provide mechanized mulching services within and along selected drainage channels while EADW's mulching machine was being upgraded. This process of upgrading the machine is continuing and would not be accomplished until the beginning of 2008. EADW recommends tasking CSSI to provide more mulching services not to exceed $40,000 to enable the district to catch up on much-needed channel clearing. Motion proposed to authorize task order number 3 to CSSI for mulching services in areas to be determined by EADW not to exceed $40,000.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Jared Savoy, second by Mr. Jared Byerger. Any discussion? Any objection? So moved. Move on to number 12, servitude revocation, north property line of retreat at Ascension subdivision.
So moved.
I got a motion by Mr. Jared Byerger,
Second.
second by Mr. Valentine. Any discussion? Any objections? So moved. This is to bring it to the full council as a recommendation coming from the Drainage Board.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Motion adjourned by Mr. Byerger, second by Mrs. Fontenot.
Well, I just want to say one thing, and that's to compliment Mr. Rue on these new items with the motion attached. This is very fine, and we thank you for your work.
No objections on the adjourn? So moved.